Played on July 8th, 1960. Well, we've seen Friðrik Ólafsson before. He was born in Reykjavik, Iceland, born on January 26, 1935. So we are just a few months away from his 90th birthday. 4 months away, to be exact. He tied for first place with Korchnoi at Hastings. Ólafsson did, a multiple-time Scandinavian chess champion, the first Icelandic Grandmaster, and he received that title in 1959 for his performance at the Candidates Tournament. First place at Vikonsay in 1976, and Ólafsson was FIDE president from 78 to 82, and he's a lawyer by profession. So e4 here, no surprise. Bobby Fischer, always playing e4 by now. Best by test, said he. Ólafsson with a Sicilian defense, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, and we get the open Sicilian. Pawn takes the pawn, knight takes the pawn. Knight f6, knight c3, and of course we get a6 as Miguel Najdorf's variation. Miguel Najdorf was born Moshe Najdorf in Warsaw, Poland. He lived from April 15th, 1910 to July 4th, 1997, and he played for Poland in the Olympiads of 1935, 37, and 39. But it was at the 1939 Chess Olympiad, which was coincidentally held here in Buenos Aires. While playing there, the Second World War broke out, and because of his Jewish descent, he chose the better part of valor and stayed in Argentina. But sadly, his wife, daughter, parents, and 4 brothers were all murdered in the Holocaust. In 1943, Najdorf set a record for simultaneous games played, 202 at one time. He only lost 8 of those, drew 12, and won 182. In 1947, he conducted a simul in which he played 45 games blindfolded. That was also a record. He won 39 of those, lost 2, and drew 4. Najdorf's variation, pawn a6, and it's one of the most popular lines in the Sicilian. Of course, the idea is to prevent bishop b5, and thereby preparing pawn to e5. He's also preparing an eventual pawn to b5, isn't he? Supported by the A-man that has just been pushed. Well, black keeps flexibility for his queen's knight. It may come to d7, it may come to c6. He also maintains opportunities. He doesn't have to come to e5. He might come to e6, transposing to a Scheveningen. He could also play to g6 in a sort of what Simon Williams called it, a Dragendorf. It's positionally sound, but it is dynamic, and it's a very sharp line of the Sicilian defense, but it is very theoretical, which could work against you because of the extensive depth of knowledge that you'd have to play. And white has a lot of dangerous sacrifices that he can deploy in Najdorf's. And because it's so popular, even though it is extensively theoretical, the other side of its popularity is that maybe your opponent will be prepared for it since it's so commonly played. Bobby Fischer always endeavor with bishop c4, known as Lipnitsky's attack here in the Najdorf, and that's named for Isaac Lipnitsky. Lipnitsky lived from June 25th, 1923 to March 25th, 1959. Not a very long lifespan at all. Soviet chess master, 2-time Ukrainian champion in 49 and 56. Really, he was among Ukraine's top players, well, all the way to the time of his demise, Lipnitsky's attack. But when we play e6, we transpose to Scheveningen, which means we transpose to Sozin's attack. Same move, but different tabia with e6. So Sozin's attack, named for Veniamin Sozin. He lived from 1896 to 1956. Sozin did. Soviet chess master as well and theoretician. Bishop b3 is played here, and here's the aforementioned b5. This is the flank variation. Now we castle, and bishop e7 prepares to castle. Queen f3 and queen c7. Now queen g3. So castling moves right into the queen's line of fire and allows the bishop to come to h6. And castling is the book move in the Encyclopedia of Chess Openings, Volume B, Section 86, but here, Ólafsson with pawn b4. I'll show you the book line. I know you want to see it. Castles. Where is my... There it is. It's a little sluggish today. Bishop h6, knight e8, queen's rook to d1, and bishop d7. And the most common move here is knight f3 and knight c6. Coming back, Ólafsson with b4. So queen's knight comes to e2. Don't play queen takes g7 here, thinking, okay, I'll attack this rook. That's a blunder, because it's going to be answered with rook g8, hitting your queen, defended by his knight, and then you've lost your knight after you get your queen to safety. There is no smart aleck bishop a4 here either. You're just digging the hole deeper. You still have to deal with this and lose your knight. So, queen's knight comes to e2. g6 is played. Not the most common approach to this threat by the queen. More common and called for by the bot, if you noticed. I'll put it back up there, and you can see, oops, it's this way, that knight b7, knight bd7 is the best move. Okay, I said more common, but actually, according to this, it has never been played by the top-level players. On knight bd7, we take this pawn, I think. He'll obviously hit us. We'll put our queen on h6, and no doubt his knight will come to c5. Oh no, okay, I see. I misread my notes. G6 is actually the most common move that's being dinged by the bot. C3 here, right? Play bishop h6 first. Bishop h6 has been played a couple times since then. That keeps the king from castling. And he can pick up this pawn, though. It's undefended. Hit my queen. I will play queen to e3 and make your knight move. Knight to c5 should be good. But the eval bar favors me here. C3 chosen by Bobby. Right, so after C3, knight takes the pawn on E4 anyway, queen to E3 anyway, and in this case the knight went back to F6. I would think you could have defended. It says queen B7. That seems unusual. Why not bishop B7? Bishop B7 seems more natural. I do get a star for that. Eval bar is dead center here. Pawn takes the pawn on B4. We castle. Bishop D2. Pawn E5 hits the knight. The knight retreats to f3, and now bishop b7. Marked with an inaccuracy. Again, that's such a natural move. Queen b7, the preferred move. That seems a little bit... I'm not real sure why you would block your bishop from coming to its favorite diagonal here. I mean, if I'm not developing my bishop to b7, I would develop my knight to c6. See what I get for that. A check mark. Not real clear. Maybe because it puts a super attack on this pawn, sort of? I don't know. I'm not good enough to know why queen b7 is better than bishop b7 there. Well, maybe because my queen's rook is coming to c1 and making your queen move anyway. That could be why. Ólafsson with queen d7, which also seems a little bit wrong, because isn't that where the knight would want to play? And the bot concurs. Queen d8 is the better choice, so that knight d7 can be played. Knight c3, also held in disdain by our annotator, and again, I thought this was fine. Knight g3, the bot prefers to keep the file open, I'm assuming, and play this way. Okay. At least I can understand a reason why knight g3 might be better. I really didn't understand why queen b7 was better. I do know why queen d8 is better. Queen f5 here, also frowned upon. Knight c6, oh, of course, yeah, knight c6 makes sense. Developing your last minor, let your bishop and your knight lead in the fight, and then the queen's rook can come over here somewhere. Queen f5 was played. Bishop c2 hitting the queen. h3 preferred. See, that's, again, this is where I play a little differently. I'd want to get this last piece into play, either to e1 or to d1. Let's look at what the bot says of each of these moves. I get a thumbs up for RFE1. I get a check mark for RFD1. And Bobby gets a check mark for bishop c2. Queen h5, knight e4. Bishop takes the knight on e4. Bishop takes the bishop. Now d5. Bishop retreats to c2. e4 hitting the knight. And I know he wants to get his knight on g4, hitting my queen and putting some real pressure here with my my knight en prise and no longer defending h2, that would really be a strong attack. Knight d4, bishop d6. Okay, he super attacks from this direction. And that keeps the queen from coming over to defend. Right, if you come here, the queen can defend. So this is actually better than my idea. h3, queen's knight to d7, bishop d1 hitting the queen, queen e5, battery attacking h2. Don't self-mate. Don't play a3 and be checkmated. No, g3 is played. That creates a hole right here on f3. And note that the knight is only 2 moves away from that hole. Although it is presently well defended, that can come into play at some juncture. It's something that if you're black, you've got on your mind right now. You're starting to think, I wonder how I can make use of that square. King's rook to c8, inaccurate. Queen e7 called for by the bot here. All right, bishop e2. Queen e8, also marked inaccurate. Well, rook takes rook being called for. Yeah, I might have preferred to put this rook back over here. I get a check mark. My idea is to retreat the queen to e7. If rook c6, then queen e7 should be okay. Queen e8 was played, a3, bishop e5, and here again, h5 being called for, but my preference here is that knight move, getting 1 step closer to the f3 square. Might be stronger. I get a thumbs up for this move. And by the way, the other knight can take its place on d7. We also have knight c4 at the right moment, so I've got this a really strong knight on e5. Got threats against the king here, got threats against the queen here. At the right moment, in the right circumstance. If he plays like rook fd1, this is a natural move, I'll play the knight to c4. But if he plays like queen g5 attacking this knight, I'll play it to d7. Get a star for both of those moves. Bishop e5, chosen by Ólafsson. And Bobby with b5. Okay, that's marked inaccurate. a4 being called for. I actually liked trading rooks here. It's more active because it decoys either the queen's rook or the queen. If he takes with the queen's rook, this pawn hangs. Or if he takes with the queen, we get initiative, grabbing the open file with tempo. So I was in favor of the more active move there. b5, Bobby's choice. a4 was the bot's preference. Incidentally, coming back to this problem of a knight landing on f3, you can play a quiet move here, prophylactically dealing with this threat so that that doesn't come with check someday. Just play king g2. It's a fairly normal, and it gets a star. Pretty normal idea. You'll see this kind of thing, especially at this level. All right, so anyway, pawn takes the pawn, bishop takes the pawn, pinning the knight to the queen, and now rooks are traded on c1. Marked inaccurate, queen e7 called for. Note you don't want to play the bishop takes knight here. On bishop takes knight and queen takes bishop, this knight will come to the e5 square. And you got a fork looming. So you have to defend against knight f3. Okay, you're probably, actually, white's still Jim Dandy, isn't he? Knight, the bishop takes care of it. So you don't want to take the queen, by the way. Because on bishop takes, then the knight gives check. King gets out of check. I'm here. You still have to deal with your bishop. And so anyway, don't play bishop takes knight. Rook takes rook was played. Rook takes rook. Now queen b8. Once again, assaulting the h2 b8 diagonal, but also putting some pressure here and through the bishop down here. That pawn is undefended, isn't it? Bishop c6 hits the rook. a4 is the better choice. Yeah, just start marching on up the board. a5 is defended, isn't it? Bishop c6 was played. Now rook a6 and bishop takes the knight. That's marked inaccurate. Again, a4 being suggested. That here maybe king g2 is available as well, isn't it? Here it's given, okay, it changed its mind to a check mark. At some point, you want to get away from the danger of knight f3. But it's not imminent, so I guess that's why it doesn't have to be played right away. Bishop takes the knight. Knight takes the bishop. Knight c6. queen e8. Do not take the so-called free pawn here. That would be catastrophic, I think, because you will get your queen trapped. First, I'll take the bishop here. That gets a exclam, and that discovers the attack against c8. So you have to defend against rook c8, so you lose your knight. You can't take the knight. If you take the knight with the knight, then you're just going to be mated. Let's play queen h4, and there are a number of ways depending on how he plays. Obviously, going back is mate in 1. If he interposes, I'm simply grabbing with the queen, and mate is looming. Just got to find a way to finish him off. Well, my queen's coming to e7 next, isn't it? Regardless of whether you play here or here. Doesn't much matter which way you play, because it's e7 either way, and then you have the same two choices either way, because that's covered by the queen. Oh, wait a minute, you can't go there. The queens go sideways now. They just passed that rule last week. So lame. But I know there's a checkmate looming here, right? b5 or b6. I'm at least winning your queen, but I think there got to be a mate. I'm going to play queen b7 is what I'm going to play. So, okay, it says b6 is wrong. I thought stop queen b7. Oh, because queen c5. Yeah, queen c5, and then it's mate here. So you have to try to come this way. But I'm playing queen b7 then. And on king a4, okay, I can't go to a5. It's covered. I smell a checkmate here. Let me just take the queen for starters. Oh, yeah, take the queen, and now this is mate. This is mate. Okay, if you defend, if check here, he takes, rook comes down, he has to come here, is only legal move, and then we get a ladder. I knew there'd be one looming there somewhere. Went to all that trouble just to say, you can't take that, and you can't take with the queen. Can't take with the queen for similar reasons. Well, I guess you could block with the knight here, though. But I can super attack. You'd have to super defend. But now I can hit your queen. Wow, that's some well-coordinated chess right there. All that to say that queen takes pawn, knight takes bishop, you're going to lose your knight because you pretty much have to defend against rook c8. And here, and then just come over. Or you could come up here, shoot for this. All right, a lot of ways to win there. Don't take the pawn. That's my point. Don't take the pawn. Queen e8 was played. There were so many reasons not to take that pawn. Lots of things that could go wrong there. Bishop b4 was played here. That's marked as a mistake. Yeah, I guess you should leave this square for your knight to hit this rook. And really, where does this bishop belong? It really belongs on h6, doesn't it? Containing the opponent's king. So really the move, what's it called for here? Queen b3. The move is queen b3, and the reason is you're accessing, well, I mean, depending, you may want to play bishop e3 or bishop h6. Meanwhile, your pawn is hanging here too. I have a lot going for me here as well. Bobby with bishop b4. Bishop f6 was played. Queen e6 is interesting. Well, I mean, I'll take the bishop if you queen e6. Oh, why is that a blunder? What did I miss? Oh, knight takes. That's actually what I had in my notes. I think I just reflexively captured that because I'm fatigued. Problem with queen takes is you're going to get that check, and that can't be good. It's not good because you're going to get skewered. All right, bishop f6, queen f4, marked as a mistake. White should try king g2, supporting the h-man. I've been calling for king g2 all game long, haven't I? Now the bot is calling for it as well. Queen f4 was played, h5 from Ólafsson, big red X. Another prophylactic move suggested by the bot, king g7. Yeah, so knight e7 doesn't come with check. Same thing down here. The whole idea of king g2, you don't want this knight getting in here with check. So the idea is this. Look, white would love to get his queen here in line with this undefended rook so that when he moves his knight to here, giving check, my queen is then attacking his rook. He's got to get out of check. I grab his rook. That is the idea of king g7. Put your queen here. That's no longer a valid discovered attack on the rook because it doesn't come with tempo. What gives discovered attacks their teeth but another attack? So king g7. On king g7, bishop d2. If bishop takes the pawn, I'm going to give the check right here. Okay, actually, black looks good here, actually. Doesn't work for white. It's not enough. So king g7, quite the prophylactic after all. Now, you don't want to play queen e6 here. That gets a question mark. On queen e6, knight b8. And rook b6, well, that's marked inaccurate. Instead, knight e5, Yeah, in my mind, I was going to play here, give the check, and on king g7, knight takes knight. And on queen takes the knight, I was going to queen c1. But he can actually sack the exchange here. Double exclam, ladles and jelly spoons. Double exclam. Finally got something right. Well, the bot says this is drawn. Now, you also want to avoid taking the so-called free pawn here. That marked blunder. Because I am going to get the check here after king g7. You have trapped your queen. Queen has no way of escape. Bada bing, bada boom. You have to give up your queen for the rook. So watch out for those free pawns. Nice way to blockade that queen. All right, so anyway, queen f4, pawn h5, pawn b3 gets a red X. Yeah, queen d6. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, I already mentioned this, the whole theme is the discovered attack. So here he'd have to play queen e6 to defend. Bobby with pawn b3, now queen e6, marked inaccurate, king h7, or again, king g7 should be fine. Either or, the point is, eliminate this from being check. Queen e6 by Ólafsson, queen c7, another derogatory mark. Knight b8 being called for. I guess that hopes for knight takes knight, but he doesn't have to play knight takes knight. He's hoping for, black should not play. Look at his advantage here. Look at the eval bar. But the reason the bot's saying knight b8 is you want to at least see if your opponent will take it. I mean, you can't be any more lost than you already are. Well, if knight takes knight, I can equalize immediately. So do not play knight takes knight. Notice the big red X. Queen takes with check, king h7, and queen c8. I'm going to try to trade everything down and just play for the draw. But he doesn't have to play that. He can play knight e5. Ooh! Double exclam! Double exclam because you leave your rook sitting there. But I'm going to, after I take the rook, black is going to play pawn to g5, hitting the queen. Force the queen away, and then this pawn is going to hang. And you've got the king contained, and that's going to win the opponent's queen. Because knight here, the only legal move is to take, and then you take, and then you're mated. So you actually have to play rook c3 to defend. It's the only way to avoid a checkmate. Any other move, and this would result in a checkmate. Because if the rook's not there to take the pawn, there's no way to stop queen g2. And then we're just winning. Take your pick on how to finish. Just probably anywhere safe. Bishop e5 gets a star. You probably can go d4 as well. Probably doesn't matter. Oh, nope. See? Well, because I blocked myself probably. The important thing is don't leave your bishop hanging. Right, another double exclam, so that's 2. I like that. Anyway, queen c7 from Bobby Fischer. Now king h7 gets a big red X. Well, the whole point of this move is to avoid the threat here of queen c7, by the way, is queen c8, forking the king and the rook. So what did it call for? King g7? What's the difference? It did. It called for king g7. What's the difference? To be honest, I'm not sure what the difference is. Are there any masters in the house that want to tell me why king g7 is better than king h7? The bot says it's the better way to avoid this fork, but I don't know why. You could, by the way, avoid the fork simply by moving your rook, too. I get a thumbs up for that idea. Somebody smarter than I and less tired than I will have to tell you why king g7 is better than king h7, but it gets a big red X. Queen c8 played anyway. Rook b6, knight d8 hits the queen, and queen takes the h3. Why not bishop takes the knight here? George Kalach says, because you probably cover the f1 pawn, bishop with king. Huh? Oh, probably because you cover these two pieces. The f pawn. He didn't mean f1 pawn. He just meant the f pawn. The one got inserted. Oh, that could be. That could be. It liberates your other pieces. I'm going to accept your answer, Kalach, because I have no reason to dispute what you're saying. Yeah, okay. I'm going to actually say that's probably true. I'm guessing he chose h7 on purpose, though, to stay off of the dark squares, give his bishop retraction, and also avoid any eventual ideas of a hit here, either with the bishop or the queen. If you can imagine this knight not being here and the queen is on c7, well, the bishop's already looking here. If the king's on g7, then the queen comes over, and I can see it being potentially uncomfortable. Queen comes over, the king has to come here anyway, then the bishop comes down, and you've got potential problems. That's what I'm guessing. But I think Kalach is right. Cover these two pieces, liberate these two pieces. Okay, I think that's got to be the reason. And the eval bar, notice the eval bar substantially favors the, well, I guess not substantially. It's 1.2 here, and it's, oh yeah, it's almost equal here. It's 0.5 here, so it's somewhat substantial. All right, king h7 is the move played. Queen c8 was played. Rook b6 was played. Knight d8, and surprisingly, he doesn't take the knight. He takes this pawn. So you really want to take with the bishop, and this rook is coming up here next. So queen takes, rook up here. Hits the queen. I suppose I can interpose here with my rook, and then just trade everything. Play e3, try to break things up here, but bishop e1 will defend here. Keep your pawns rolling, etc., etc. Black's got some initiative, but the eval bar says white should be able to hold if he plays correctly. But it's certainly, these guys are going to make white sweat, aren't they? Anyway, queen takes the pawn. Knight takes f7. Rook b8. It's the queen. e3 being called for. Now that is interesting. e3, can I play? Notice the piece relationship here. I almost have a fork except for this bishop. Now, I can decoy the bishop and trade queens in a very fancy way. This forces the bishop to take. Oh, man, is that my third? Is that my third one? I think that was my third one, man. Yeah, that was my third. Wow. Decoy the bishop and then play this fork here. After king h6, I regain my material. I get the menace out of my house, and I'm no worse for the wear. Even on here, you know, I can grab it with my knight, and I think I'm holding. So I'm not sure why the bot preferred e3, because I think it allows me to force that draw. This, by the way, is a perfect example of piece relationships and why I keep talking about them. When you've got something looming like this, and you've got a problem like this, how can I solve the problem? Well, I solve it by forcing him to move the problem. I move his bishop where I want it to be. All right, rook b8 was played. It does get a thumbs up. Queen c6, queen f5. That's going to win if bishop d4 is played. The knight's undefended, so that's a discovered attack against the knight because it's a super attack against the f-man. Hopefully you understand that. So you don't want to play something like h4 here for the same reason as before. This is exact same thing, it's just different. I expect to get a double exclam here. It's going to be my fourth, I predict, because if queen h8 was a double exclam, queen takes bishop should be a double exclam for the same reason. I've got a piece relationship susceptible to a fork. The problem? The bishop. Remove the defender. Boom! Double exclam number 4. Because I'm getting back my material, only in this instance, I have a bishop in my pocket. In the previous instance, I didn't get the bishop. It was just a decoy of the bishop so I could equalize. Here, I've got a full bishop advantage. And what's great is I was able to predict, based on the earlier double exclam, that this would be a double exclam. All right, queen f5 is played. Knight d6 hits the queen. Marked inaccurate. Rook d1 more appropriate. Rook d1 super attacking the d-man. So he has to push to d4. Oh, and then I win the e-man. That's that. Now, this could get tricky. Queen g4 hits my rook, but I can take the e-man. Let me calculate. I take the e-man with my knight. Queen takes, king h2, rook d8, ba5. He would play king h6, but then I pick up the rook. Let me play it out. I think I can play this. Double exclam! Double exclam! That's 5! That's 5! Double exclam number 5. Queen takes the rook, king to h2. Rook has to defend the knight. I attack the rook. Oh, it's inaccurate? Why is that inaccurate? Because you just leave the rook. You play king h6. You just leave the rook. You let him have the rook. Play king h6. Double exclam! Double exclam number 6! Double exclam number 6! That's 6 double exclams in one game. Take the rook, and then the knight comes to e5, threatening checkmate soon. It could also come this way. You could come that away. It says dead even, so there's probably a perpetual check. So let's say queen d5, knight g4 check, and you have to play king g2. And then see this piece relationship? So we open the second rank. Seven. The point is, yeah, you're giving up your knight, but you're getting a perpetual check. There's no way to avoid the perpetual now. Wherever you move, I'm playing queen e1 or queen f1. King h1, queen e1, and I just go back and forth. If you play king h3, then queen f1. Wow. 7 double exclams in a single game. By the way, you don't want to play king h3. That's checkmate, isn't it? Instead of king g2. This is a self-mate. Hello. Oh, queen f1 is also checkmate, isn't it? All right, coming back. Wow. That would have been really interesting game. 7 brilliancies in one game. And I'm tired. Should play tired more often. Actually, I prepared these notes earlier. I didn't run them through the evals, so I didn't know. You're seeing the evals for the first time, as I am. Right after knight d6, Ólafsson played queen e6. And after all that, they agreed to a draw right there anyway. Let's give you the numbers. 90.8 for Bobby Fischer, 91.4 for Friðrik Ólafsson. Both players scoring a 2,700 single game assessment.